The Sworne Book of Honorius Manuscript Analysis by Shel Savage. The manuscript Sworne Book of Honorius is a grimoire which is a magical handbook that can be used during ceremonial magic to conjure up spirits and a vision of God. This copy of the Sworne Book of Honorius was translated to English in the mid-15th century. However, some parts are still in Latin, mostly the prayers. This was used by Christians as well as others, such as students, doctors, or alchemists who sought magical powers. The book is made of parchment with a flyleaf to protect it. The book's origins are from England, and the script is a Gothic textura quadrata. The book was presented to the British Museum by George II in 1757 to the Old Royal Library, bound together with the name Royal MSA XLII and Royal MS 17A XLIV. From this graph here, you can see the different versions of the manuscript that still exist. Unfortunately, the original Liber Iurationis Honori did not survive. Therefore, traditions were established since there were some variances to the manuscript which are referred to as the Northern and the Southern traditions. In the Northern tradition, there are 6 manuscripts. 5 are in Latin and 1 is in English, which is now at the London British Library, called the Royal 17A XLII, otherwise known as the Sworne Book of Honorius, and is the version that will be discussed in this presentation. In the Northern tradition, the manuscripts are more complete, as they have most of their folios still intact. The Sloane 313 edition is dated back to the second half of the 14th century, which is believed to be the original most complete set that was owned by scholar John Dee. However, manuscript Sloane 3851 is the most well-preserved of them all. In the Southern tradition, the manuscript contained fragments of the original, and the ritual order is different. Also, a vision of God ritual and the prologue are also not in the Southern editions. There are small differences in the seal, called the Cilium Diem, used to aid in the magic, and in the Royal MSA XLII, there's only a description on how to make this seal, which I will go into more detail later. At the top of the tree would be the original manuscript, but as I noted earlier, has been lost. Scholar Professor Haust has found evidence that the original manuscript may have been inspired by Agrippa's De Occulta Philosophia. Over close examination of the text, it was noticed that the fumigation of an angel and the list of spirits are very similar in not only the Sworne Book of Honorius, but also in Agrippa's manuscript. In 1964, in a small town in the Netherlands, a magical seal was discovered while construction was being done on Castle Dorenburg. The castle was undergoing a remodel when a magical seal was discovered inside the castle wall. The round lead disc that was found is called a Cilium Dei, which is also called the Seal of God, and was used in medieval times to conjure spirits during magical rituals. The magical seal discovered in a rock in this image, believed to have possessed magical powers. In 2011, Dr. L.S. Shadarnanin, a professor at Radboud University for Culture and History, and is a lecturer on medieval English and magic, performed a research investigation with his undergraduate student. They discovered this magical disc had connections to the Sworne Book of Honorius. By using them together, could conjure up spirits and or angels. These spirits and or angels would help to aid in the practitioner in creating power to help aid in the spiritual enlightenment and to ultimately see God. The Sigillium Dei is made from lead and has inscriptions and symbols on words that spell out God himself and his angels. So in order to fulfill the requirements to attain a vision of God, the practitioner would need to make one of these discs, which is described in the Sworne book of Honorius, step by step. This slide shows an example of the Sigillium Dei that Professor House made from the instructions from the Sworne book of Honorius. The Sworne book of Honorius is not a complete copy, as the middle part of the manuscripts are missing. Folio 3 and 4 are lacking from Royal 17A XLII. However, this copy does have the prologue, which says, "When wicked spirits were gathered, intending to send devils into the hearts of men, to the intent they destroy all things profitable for mankind, and to corrupt all the whole world, even the uttermost off their power, sowing Christ and envy, and rooting bishops and prelates in pride, even the Pope himself and his cardinals." Along with the prologue, this tradition of the manuscript also has an oath that there should only be 3 copies of the manuscript, and that it needs to be passed down to the next practitioner, as long as this person was not a minor or a woman. Also, the holder of the book would swear that if there was no one to hand the book down to, it shall be buried without a trace of its whereabouts. An interesting side note is that the prologue was taken out of the Southern tradition, or was never included to begin with. During the ritual, the practitioner would have to obey a list of rules, and preparations had to be made. The Sworne book of Honorius, along with the Sigillium Dei, would be the tools needed. The ritual would require fasting, praying, and while praying, writing God's name in ash 100 times, abstinence, going to Mass, and constructing his own Sigillium Dei. Then the practitioner would have to find a pure priest to help aid in performing the reading and the ritual with the seal, in order for the practitioner to have a true Visio Dei. Another aspect of the book that is unique to the others in the tradition, also have ties to Agrippa's book, is the art of fumigation. The fumigation practice involves burning herbs to enhance the effect of the magic by cleansing the air. This process for fumigation would be to divide the days up, since a different herb concoction was needed for each day. So if it were Tuesday, then Sanders wood would be burned, and so on. The most important fumigation, however, was a fumigation for the planets. So example, if Venus was the planet needing fumigated, the ingredients were quite elaborate, as brains from a sparrow would be needed, along with aloe, red roses, and the list goes on. The time and preparation are impressive. The end result is that the practitioner will be clear of all bad vibes, guilt, and the air will be clean enough for the practitioner to see God in its purest form possible. The Sworne Book of Honorius manuscript's goal is to have a vision of God. Therefore, God's name is everywhere inside the manuscript. And on this slide, you can see number 72, which represents the 72 letters in God's name. This number becomes important when creating the Seal of God disc, where the sequence is 72 letters, and that's divided by 8 groups. Then you'll have 9 full names, and the angels' names will appear next. So there has been some speculation whether angels are being summoned or demons. This argument does make sense, since Christians do believe that spirits are demons, but this has not been proved. This slide here shows an angel prayer used to summon an angel, which would appear in the practitioner's dream. So after the fumigation, the ritual is to list angelic names of the months and the planets. During the medieval times, this art of magic was believed to be a negative action, and it conjured up demons. Even Frank Cosson agrees that the goal to intellectual enlightenment is not so much the use of angels, but usually conjures up demons. In conclusion, even though these kinds of books have been used by Christians and in Christian churches, such as Solomon using Arius Notra, can it really be true that demons are being summoned by using it? This is all very interesting and is a fascinating subject with a lot more exploration to be done in the area of magical rituals done in Christian spaces.